This is a secret the British and Argentinian governments don't want you to know. Imagine a war fought over a group of small, remote islands in the South Atlantic, and how this conflict reshaped military strategies worldwide. Welcome to the untold story of the Falklands War. The Falklands War, or the Malvinas War, a brief yet intense conflict between Argentina and the United Kingdom, took place in 1982 over the disputed Falkland Islands, South Georgia, and the South Sandwich Islands. Though short in duration, the war had profound impacts on both nations involved and left an indelible mark on global military strategies and international relations. Ever wonder why these cold, wind-swept islands sparked such a heated conflict? Here's what they don't tell you about the Falklands history. The Falkland Islands, known as Islas Malvinas in Argentina, have a contentious history dating back centuries. Both the British and Spanish empires, followed by Argentina and Britain, have laid claim to these remote islands in the South Atlantic. In the early 19th century, Argentina, newly independent from Spain, established a garrison on the islands. However, in 1833, Britain reasserted its control, evicting the Argentine presence and establishing a permanent colony. This action sowed the seeds of a dispute that would simmer for nearly 150 years. The sovereignty dispute over the Falklands was more than just a territorial issue, it was also about national pride and geopolitical strategy. The islands, though remote and sparsely populated, held strategic importance due to their location in the South Atlantic, providing a gateway to Antarctica and valuable maritime routes. As the 20th century progressed, both Argentina and Britain continued to assert their claims. Diplomatic efforts to resolve the dispute were intermittent and ultimately unsuccessful, leading to increasing tension and nationalistic fervor in Argentina. What if I told you that a small diplomatic oversight could lead to a full-scale war? This is exactly what happened in 1982. By the late 20th century, Argentina was under the rule of a military junta. Facing economic difficulties and civil unrest, the junta sought to rally nationalistic fervor by reclaiming the Falklands. Believing that Britain would not mount a significant military response, Argentina invaded the islands on April 2, 1982. The invasion caught the world by surprise, but none more so than Britain. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher's government faced a critical decision: accept the occupation or respond with force. The decision was made to dispatch a naval task force to retake the islands, setting the stage for a dramatic and costly conflict. The Argentine junta underestimated Britain's resolve to defend its territory. The British response was swift and decisive, with Thatcher declaring the invasion an act of aggression that could not be tolerated. This decision resonated with the British public, galvanizing support for the military action. This is why Argentina's invasion plan failed and how it led to their downfall. The initial Argentine invasion was swift and met with minimal resistance. The small British garrison stationed on the islands was quickly overrun, and the Argentine forces established control. However, the real challenge began with Britain's decision to respond. The British task force faced numerous challenges, including logistical difficulties and the harsh South Atlantic weather, but they were determined to reclaim the islands. The British task force, led by Rear Admiral Sandy Woodward, consisted of aircraft carriers, destroyers, frigates and amphibious assault ships. The journey to the Falklands was long and perilous, with the fleet covering approximately 8,000 miles. The logistical difficulties of supporting a large naval task force so far from home were immense. The British relied heavily on supply ships and refueling at sea to maintain their operational capabilities. The harsh weather conditions of the South Atlantic further compounded the challenges, testing the endurance and resilience of the British sailors. Everything you knew about modern naval warfare is wrong. The Falklands War changed the game forever. As the task force approached the Falklands, they faced constant threats from Argentine air and naval forces. On May 2, 1982, the British submarine HMS Conqueror sank the Argentine cruiser General Belgrano, leading to significant Argentine naval losses and altering the course of the war. This controversial action demonstrated the strategic importance of submarine warfare and sent a clear message to Argentina. The sinking of the General Belgrano was a pivotal moment in the conflict. It effectively neutralized the Argentine naval threat, allowing the British task force to operate with greater freedom in the South Atlantic. The loss of the cruiser also had a significant psychological impact on the Argentine military and public. Despite the setback, Argentine forces continued to pose a significant threat, particularly through their air force. The next phase of the conflict would see some of the most intense air battles of the war. Did you know that Argentine pilots performed some of the most daring air raids of the 20th century? Here's how they did it. The Argentine Air Force launched numerous attacks on the British fleet, utilizing French-built Exocet missiles. These missiles proved highly effective, causing significant damage, including the sinking of HMS Sheffield and the supply ship Atlantic Conveyor. Despite their bravery, Argentine pilots faced overwhelming odds and advanced British air defenses. The loss of key ships and aircraft marked a turning point in the air campaign. The Exocet missiles, launched from super-attended aircraft, were a formidable weapon. The sinking of HMS Sheffield marked the first time a British warship had been sunk in action since World War II. The attack on the Atlantic Conveyor resulted in the loss of vital supplies and helicopters, complicating British logistics. The air battles over the Falklands were characterized by their intensity and high stakes. Argentine pilots displayed remarkable skill and bravery, but they were up against a well-equipped and determined British force. The British Harrier jets, operating from aircraft carriers, played a crucial role in defending the fleet and gaining air superiority. The land battles were fierce and personal. Here's a soldier's story from the front lines. On May 21, 1982, British forces landed on the Falklands, beginning a series of intense ground battles. Key engagements included the Battle of Goose Green, where Lieutenant Colonel H. Jones posthumously received the Victoria Cross for his leadership and bravery. The Battle of Goose Green was one of the first major ground engagements. Despite being outnumbered, the British forces achieved a significant victory, boosting morale and paving the way for further advances. These battles were fought in harsh conditions, with both sides displaying incredible bravery and tenacity. Personal accounts from soldiers highlight the brutal, close-quarters nature of the conflict. The terrain of the Falklands, characterized by rocky hills and sparse vegetation, made for challenging combat conditions. Soldiers on both sides had to contend with cold, wet weather and difficult terrain. The battles for key positions such as Mount Tumbledown and Mount Longdon were particularly intense, with hand-to-hand combat and heavy casualties. The determination and resilience of the British forces eventually overcame the Argentine defenses. The successful capture of key positions brought them closer to the capital, Port Stanley. This is my most controversial belief about the end of the Falklands War. The Argentine surrender was both inevitable and avoidable. By mid-June, British forces had encircled the capital, Port Stanley. Argentine forces, suffering from low morale and dwindling supplies, surrendered on June 14, 1982. The swift conclusion of the ground campaign contrasted sharply with the war's overall intensity and devastation. The Argentine surrender marked the end of hostilities, but the war left deep scars on both nations. The Argentine forces were poorly supplied and lacked adequate support, contributing to their eventual surrender. The psychological impact of the British advance and the realization of their untenable position played crucial roles in the decision to capitulate. The British victory was celebrated, but it came at a high cost. The conflict resulted in significant casualties on both sides and left lasting legacies for the soldiers who fought and the nations involved. Buckle up for the geopolitical shifts that followed the Falklands War. These events reshaped international relations in unexpected ways. The Falklands War had significant political ramifications in both Argentina and the UK. The defeat led to the fall of the Argentine military junta, paving the way for the restoration of democracy. In Britain, the war bolstered Thatcher's government, leading to a decisive victory in the 1983 general elections. The war also had a profound impact on military strategies and doctrines. It underscored the importance of air superiority, modern naval power, and the need for effective logistical and medical support in remote conflict zones. The legacy of the Falklands War continues to influence military strategy and international relations to this day. The conflict also had lasting effects on the Falkland Islanders themselves. The war brought international attention to their plight, and the subsequent years saw significant investment in the island's infrastructure and economy, further solidifying their connection to Britain. The Falklands War remains a pivotal event in modern military history. It highlighted the complexities of territorial disputes, the unpredictable nature of military conflict, and the enduring importance of national pride. As we look back, the lessons learned continue to influence global military strategies and international relations. Think you know all there is about the Falklands War? Think again. Follow us for more deep dives into the conflicts that shaped our world.